Hello and welcome to this episode of the Fortnightly Dispatch, brought to you by the Baker Street Irregulars. I'm Steve Doyle and I'm your host. I've explained a number of times throughout the series some of the motivations for bringing people on the show, and tonight's motivation is I just wanted to have a visit with my good friend Marsha Pollak. Marsha is a longtime Sherlockian and a member of the Baker Street Irregulars with some interesting duties that she performs. But she's also just a really great person. And I think that her story of life in our community is an interesting one. So without any further ado, hello, Marsha. It's so great to have you on the show today. I'm very happy to see you here and very happy that you said yes to my invitation. So welcome to the Fortnightly Dispatch.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm very pleased to be here with you.
Well, as our longtime viewers know, I always start with a couple of kind of stock questions. I think it's helpful to sort of orient ourselves. So Marsha, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm coming to you from my home in San Jose, California.
Great.
In the dining room. Although you'd never know it because there's bookcases in every room.
Right. That's not an unusual thing for a Sherlockian. So the second question, and I am genuinely interested in this, how it's a Sherlockian podcast. So Marsha, how did you fall under the spell of Sherlock Holmes? When did you find the great detective?
Well, always a good question. I have to go back and say that when I was in grade school, I loved reading mysteries. I picked up mysteries at the library. I would walk to the library and I would look. Now, you may know that I am now a librarian, but then I was a little kid and I was looking for some help from the librarian to help me find these things. And I'm so sorry to say, I did not receive it. So I was kind of on my own and I really fell into more of the Nancy Drew type mysteries. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I came across Sherlock Holmes and I always liked Sherlock Holmes, but I can't really, as a young child, I can't really tell you that, oh, I was a phenom at 8 and started reading The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Well, you could tell me that.
Yes, I could actually. But I would have been too scared. I was, to read, I would have thought that was scary. I knew it was scary then. You see the picture, right, on the cover? And that hound is there. Oh, terrifying. Yeah. For me. Anyway, so I think really that the time really came when I was in Buffalo, New York. And it was in 1976, 7, somewhere around in there. And I saw that there was going to be an adult ed class on Sherlock Holmes. And I said, oh, that's for me. And I couldn't go. And so I was very disappointed, but I read in the paper after that, months after that, that there was going to be a club, a group that was going to form because of that class. And I said, this is it. And so I drove across town to West Seneca, New York. And I came to, went into this room where there were all kinds of people there. There were young people. I mean, I was young, but there were younger people and there were older people. And it was just like, and they were all interesting. And that's when an Irish secret society, in Buffalo was started. And that was my first group. And I'd known Sherlock Holmes because I'd also David and I had gone to London visiting. And once, about that same time, we were sitting in the S. Holmes pub and having a I don't remember, just a drink, I think.
This is the one in Northumberland Avenue.
Yeah, Northumberland, with the sign, the Whitbread sign.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Iconic. And I looked across glanced across at the table next to us. There were a couple of gentlemen sitting there, and they had these ties on that had the silhouette of Sherlock Holmes. I said, look at that, look at that. So I got up my courage and I said, tap, 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 excuse me. And it turned out it's Tony Howlett sitting at the table right next to me.
Wow, what a stroke of serendipity.
I know. So he explained, I don't think I realized that was the society tie at the time. I don't remember. But he said, we're having a meeting tonight. Would you like to come?
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Exactly. So, and we had theater tickets for the night. So David rushes out and he goes down and sells the tickets, and we go to the meeting, and we're sitting in the back, and it was just unbelievable. And they introduced people. They acknowledged people that were from the States or from out of town. And in front of me, we were in the backish, and in the middle, I would say, sits Andy Peck. Well, now I had been corresponding with Andy, but this is the first time I ever met him in London.
You had to go all the way to London to meet him for the first time.
I know.
That's hilarious. It's funny how that happens, though. It does.
I know. And so that's when I became a member then too. And I signed up or whatever.
So was that your second Sherlock Holmes Society that you joined? You had the Irish Secret Society, and then you joined the Sherlock Holmes Society of London.
Yeah, because it must have been. It must have been. Because then I started going almost immediately, because this is now the late 70s. I lived in Buffalo. I loved Buffalo. I know people say unkind things, but it's not true. Wonderful place to live. And it's only an hour flight from New York. It's only an hour and a half to drive to Toronto. So I started going to the January weekends, but I went to the ASH dinner. And so I became a member of ASH.
This is all in the late 70s?
Yeah, I started going in the late 70s. It had to be 78 or 9, because then we moved. In 79, we moved. And I don't think I became an actual member of ASH until maybe 81. But, I met Evie, I met Sherry. I eventually met Susan, because I think I was there a little before her, right about at the same time.
Wow.
And I don't know, it was just kind of a magical time.
Yeah, that's exactly the words I was going to say. It sounds like it was a really magical time. I know that, I'm relating, because I know that when you're in that zone, that you've kind of found your way into our world here, and you're just kind of coming in, and it's all new. Everything is new, and you're meeting people. It really is quite a wonderful thing. It really, truly is. So I love this story. Was the Irish Secret Society, was that run by Frank Hoffman?
Yes, Frank Hoffman set that up and ran it. He was the head, let's just say. And it was so much fun. And in 1978, it was the Popular Cultural Society in Buffalo, but it was really an Irish Secret Society. But Frank had the connection with the university.
Right.
And so we sponsored the third John Bennett Shaw workshop.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes. People forget about that. But the
third
one,
I'm sure they do. Yes.
Yes, came to us and talk about magical. Oh my gosh, John Bennett Shaw. It was so much fun, and it was a lot of work to put it on. John Shaw's quizzes.
Oh, indeed, I do. Oh my gosh, they were John Bennett Shaw's quizzes, for all you out there, the viewing audience. They were notorious for being full of puns and just these dastardly quizzes that they were all fair play. I have to say that they were, but
they were.
Boy, they were They were really
And they,
challenging.
yes, they were. But the puns, oh gosh, some people would groan and I would laugh. Oh, it was so funny.
They were wonderful.
So we took this quiz, and you count up your points, and you know who's got da 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 da.
Mhm.
Well, it turned out I came in third. Well, I was just ecstatic, shall we say? So I get up from you had to go down, it was in an auditorium, so you had to
So you
go
had
up
to
to the
actually go up to
stage.
the front of the auditorium.
Yes,
And you've
yes.
probably not done anything like this at all.
Oh, no. But I was too excited. I did. I got up and I was ready to go down and get my prize. And then I hear somebody else in the audience say, "Oh, I got whatever." And it was, I don't know, it was a little higher than my number of points. And I said, "Oh," I mean, and I turned right around and I went back to sit down. No, I turned down I said I didn't win. And I went back to sit down. And from the stage, I hear John say, "No, or Marsha, come up."
I
And
can totally
so,
see that.
yeah. And I still have that prize. I still have.
I love that story.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So this is something I'm particularly interested in. And I've talked to a few people in this podcast more recently, over the whole course of all of this. But it's a topic that's kind of interest to me. And so when I hear stories like this, they really resonate with me. How important were these kinds of experiences for you? At this stage of your life in the Sherlockian community, when you look back, how important were events like finding the Irish Secret Society and going to a John Bennett Shaw conference and running into kind of random Sherlockians and not really understanding, the significance of that moment until later? How important was that kind of stuff, looking back on it for you?
Well, it was very important. It was crucial. I mean, if there hadn't been an Irish Secret Society, I don't know. I mean, maybe, because I did find the Sherlock Holmes Society, right?
Right.
And we were an hour and a half from Toronto. So I drove up to Toronto to the bootmaker meetings too. It all kind of goes together, but
yeah.
I mean, I had enough, I made friends with Buffalo people, and some of us went to Toronto. So I knew I was going to know someone, which is always helpful. But everybody's so welcoming. Do you know? I mean, everybody was
right. Yes.
glad to see us, welcoming and
even now,
you could join in. Oh, absolutely. I think that isn't that what Sherlockians do? Isn't that why we do this? Yes, we love the stories. We love Holmes. We love the atmosphere that we playing the game, but we love the people. Making all of these friends.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It's that's one of the great joys of doing this show is that I get to visit with friends, and then because but I also get to meet. I always take it as an opportunity. Also, take it as an opportunity to get to know people better, people who I better. So that's a real blessing for me doing this show.
No, I understand it. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're living on, out east, but but now you move to the West Coast. What's the difference between the Sherlockian scene on the east and the Sherlockians east?
Well, I didn't come straight to the West Coast, though. And that's another thing that the Sherlockian community was a huge help in my life, because from Buffalo, my husband took a job in Florida. I didn't want to go to Florida. I was very happy where I was. But I did. And I had been corresponding with Benton Wood. Do you remember Ben Wood?
I do.
From the Pleasant Places of Florida?
Florida, yes.
Yes. Well, and Ben lived on Holmes Beach, which was
Did he?
just
I didn't
south.
know that.
Yes,
Or maybe I'd
Holmes
forgotten it.
Beach. It was the best. I mean, you're writing these letters.
Right? Oh,
And
yes. Benton Woods,
and
Holmes
so
Beach.
we went down and we lived in St. Petersburg, Florida. And David was, I think he was interviewing, or maybe he was with the newspaper. I was on my own. And so I don't know why I did this, but I rented a car. Now, but it was called, I rented it from Rent-A-Wreck. Rent-A-Wreck cars. You heard of that? Did I mention I was young?
Oh, I get it. Believe me, I get it. Yeah.
Anyway, so I drive down.
I
I drive down to Holmes Beach and meet Ben. It was wonderful. So when we came to Florida, I knew no one, absolutely no one, and I did not have a job yet either.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I had the pleasant places of Florida, and so that was just a delight too.
It was like a thing you could
Yeah,
grab onto.
I knew wherever I went, I kind of knew. I didn't know we'd be going so many places,
Right.
but that there was going to probably be a group. There were going to be people there, even if I didn't know anybody. And usually I might know somebody, but not in Florida. Oh, but then you wanted to know what it was like out west. Is that what
Yeah,
what
I
the
was kind of
difference
interested
is?
in the
Yeah.
kind of interested in the it's very far apart.
That's
And
right. It is quite different,
quite different. And
actually.
so I was wondering, I know the East Coast is so rich in um science societies and Sherlock Holmes clubs and that sort of thing. And I mean, not unusual. I mean, it kind of started there. And
Right.
everything's much closer together. So I was just kind of wondering what it's like. You've lived both
Well,
places.
so out here so San Jose is in Northern California, and we're about an hour or so south of San Francisco. And of course, the Scours and Molly Maguires
Right.
were in San Francisco. And I had been out to California earlier and had gone to a couple of things with the Scours too. I'd been in touch with them. So there was a group here. I mean, a really
Right.
well-established group. And at that time, lots of people coming to the meetings.
Now, if memory serves me correct, who was running the club at that time? Was it Ted Schultz or was
It
it
was Bob Steele.
Bob Steele?
But Ted there was an inner guard, an outer guard, a Haraway. So Ray DeGroat was Haraway.
Circles.
Yes, Ray DeGroat would actually get the programs together. I believe, and
So how many people would attend a meeting?
it could be 100 at least, 100 people.
Wow, that's
This is back in the day, and
yeah. So what we're looking at, the early 80s?
Right, yeah, at that time. And so Ted Schultz, the incomparable Ted Schultz, the sweetest.
So here's the thing.
Man.
So both Ted Schultz, this is just a little inside baseball for you viewers. Ted Schultz, before he moved to the West Coast, had run the Illustrious Clients of Indianapolis, which is my local society. And Frank Hoffman, at some point after he moved from Buffalo to Bloomington, Indiana, where Indiana University is, he became faculty there. And Frank was a member of the Illustrious Clients. It's a small world.
It is.
Very interconnected. So
well, and let's see, Poole and Karen Anderson were members and very involved.
I my first BSI dinner, this will probably be a subject of a podcast one day. People's first BSI dinners. Excuse me. Mine, I had a very bad travel day to get there, and I got there just a touch late after all these misadventures. And I get there, and I'm just my first dinner. I'm a young guy. I get in, I sit down, and my table. I'm extremely overwhelmed that I'm sitting there, and this elderly, very dignified elderly gentleman sitting next to me, he says, "Oh, I'm glad you made it." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you." He goes, "But I'm Paul. My name is Paul. Very nice to meet you." And I look at his name tag, and it's Paul Anderson. I'm like, this is Paul Anderson, the science fiction,
Yes.
the legend,
Yes.
science fiction legend.
Mhm.
It was like, that's it. I'm done. I don't even know where I am. Sweet man. Such a sweet man.
Very, very sweet man. Quiet. He was
Very quiet. Yes. Very
yes.
quiet.
Yeah.
Very dignified.
Right. Yeah. We had other BSI. Bill Honert was BSI, but it was a very fine group. It was a good group.
The Scours are kind of legendary for their, there's some groups that there are many science societies, but there are some that just kind of have an extra, just because I don't know why, but they do, some because of their how early they were started, or people who perhaps were in them.
Right. Right. Well, Anthony Boucher.
Right. But on the West Coast, the Scours are the ones that is the group that seems to tower above all the rest of them. And
that's what I think. But I think that really is true. I think
it is
so.
too.
So one of the main differences, I think a big difference is the space.
Mm-hmm.
We're far apart, from everybody. Right. So even, LA is 400 miles away, right?
Right.
So, it wasn't easy to get to all of these places. And people didn't. It's not like in the East where you get on a train, and you're in Philadelphia, right? Or even Baltimore.
Right.
It's so easy to get around. In Buffalo, as I mentioned, an hour flight. Do you know this is going cross country? So
you're on the other, for us, California,
on the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's like there's a whole desert between here and there.
That's right.
It's very far away.
So I think I only speak for myself here, but I feel far away, cut off. I feel like I don't know what's going on. I don't get the gossip. I don't know really.
Maybe that's a blessing.
Actually, it is. I don't miss that. I don't.
I hear it all.
Right. So, sometimes you're a little curious, but you realize better not.
Yeah,
it's just as well not. But so I think that's really the main difference, that you have good people that you're associating with.
Sure.
But it's not like you're pulling from all these other East Coast science, or even lower. People can come up easily on the Eastern Seaboard too. They can.
But do you think that's a reason why a group like the Scours would have 100 people at a meeting? Because there's really, it's like this. Hey, we're it here. That's instead of having 5 groups, you have 1.
Right. But we had, when things started, we had people that were able to put a note in the newspaper, the Chronicle, people working there.
Right.
Anthony Boucher was doing his opera column and doing Anthony Boucher. I think that attendance everywhere, almost everywhere, seems to has fallen. People have.
You think so? I think my impression is this. I think that has been the case, but here, I'm and I could be wrong. I could be, but I'm sensing coming out of the last, I don't know, coming out of the sort of the BBC Sherlock era, elementary TV era, Robert Downey Jr. era, which was quite spectacular in a number of ways. I'm sensing that there's been kind of the Scion societies seem to like be kind of making a comeback. And
I've noticed that, but more on the East Coast.
right, maybe it hasn't gotten out to California yet.
Well, it has to a certain extent, but not as robust, I would say. I think for about 3 years we've had a Sherlock Con, not like along the lines of Atlanta, but smaller. The first one was large because I remember we spoke, we went, the Scours went, and it was phenomenal. It was the first one was at Santa Clara University, and it was all volunteers, these young, mostly women, women, but it doesn't seem to be that they join.
People often say we need to get younger people in the club or in our group. We need to get into society, and we do. I think that's true. But really, people coming up in their life, it's quite understandable that young people who are going to school or starting a career or starting a family,
right?
It takes a while for there's not a lot of extra time for this kind of thing.
No,
you really need to get the person really who's about 40, who's settled down and got a little.
Well, so that's why I think I don't know. It's hard to get. At least it's out here, and now, of course, with the pandemic, and we stopped meeting in person, and our membership is getting older. So that is an issue. At least that's my belief out here, because I think that our members, our people coming to the meetings before the pandemic, if we had 25 people, that was a good show. I was very happy with that.
Marsha, I'm just looking at my clock. We need to take a break.
Oh, okay.
We do. Yes, we need to take a break to hear from our commercial sponsor. Okay, we're back. So, Marsha, let's talk about the BSI. That's where I met you, was in the BSI. I don't get to California very often.
No, you don't.
I know, right? So when did you first attend your first BSI dinner?
And again, now I'm out on the West Coast, and in that time, you didn't get you got a dinner invitation through the mail, the U.S. mail, and I received a dinner invitation, and I said, I picked it up. I said, you know what? I opened it up. I haven't really told this too much, but I saw this invitation, and I said to my husband, "Oh, look at this. They made a mistake. They sent me a dinner invitation." That's what I thought. And so I just put it down and did nothing. I signed up. I registered for the ASH dinner. And as it got closer to the time, I got a telephone call. And it was Tom Sticks.
Tom Jr. was Wiggins, or leading. He was leading the BSI at the time.
Yes, he was. And he said something like, Marsha,
Right. Yes.
Little gruff. And basically, why haven't you responded to this, to the invitation I sent?
Because you made a mistake, Tom.
I thought it was a mistake. It's only men.
That's funny. That's like, what?
Exactly. Anyway, so I immediately registered. And that's one of the things out on the West Coast, there was no one out here to talk to about that. If I'd been on the East Coast, there would have been
Yeah, you would
there
have.
would have been sharing, right? But
Mhm.
I just didn't think of that.
Right.
So that would have been 1990.
That would have been, boy, that would have been bad.
I know. So the first year that women were invited to the dinner, I went, 1991.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the next day at the cocktail party, that's when Tom Stick stood up and made his announcement that he was investing 6 women. And it was like, it was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I
It's a
can't
huge
believe it.
moment.
And I was there.
Mhm.
So there weren't very many women at those dinners, I have to say. If you look at the pictures, you'll see maybe one at a table.
Right.
Um,
My first dinner was 94. Yeah, that's right. And there still weren't very many women at the dinner.
no, there weren't.
Yeah. That's changed a lot, I'll say. And that's a,
It has. It keeps changing. Marilyn McGregor was also, a little later invited, and she would always keep track, Steve. How many women were being invested?
yeah. Well, I totally get it. It's Matt, it was it's a long time ago now, right? I mean, think about it. It's,
It was you think about it, right? I can't believe
30 over 30 years ago. And
Yeah.
I know that there are still people who have hard feelings about it.
Oh, you should have heard the people. You weren't there when he made in 91? You weren't
No, I
there?
was not there. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah, you should have heard some of the response to that announcement. It
Heard
wasn't
about it.
all clapping. Me, I had my eyes straight forward. I have no idea what was going on in the back.
I'm just here. I'm not saying a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I was
That must have been
clapping.
awkward. Was that awkward for you to be sitting there and people are like, no,
I really was up front, and this was really coming from the way back. And I just didn't look around. I didn't want to know who was doing that, who was saying that. I was happy. I was clapping, and most people were. But
right.
it was a big change.
I mean, even now though, people who weren't even there haven't still will take the BSI to task for having been all men, before opening up. And I always am sensitive about this because, I'm not a woman. And so I don't, it's easy for me to say something like, well, everybody should just get over it. It's not that way now. And, but that may not be fair. So, I think I think Tom was very brave in doing what
It was. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I think we're a
Absolutely.
richer organization for him having taken that step.
I completely agree. I mean, Tom was gruff, but underneath, he really, I thought he was a pretty sweet guy.
He was very sentimental, wasn't he?
Yes.
I thought he was.
Yeah, he came to, he had tears when he was doing that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe that. I saw him, a number of times addressing, like when the Irregulars are standing on the terrace for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He was moved by that, and yeah,
right.
I think a very misunderstood guy in some ways. So you have some duties in the BSI now and have had them, haven't you? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I guess the the first thing that I was asked to do was by Don Terrace, probably in 2007. Don was heading up the the BSI oral history project for the trust. And he asked me if I would interview some people. And I'm thinking, and it was like, yes, I can do this. I can do this. And it was so much fun, just like you're saying, Steve, except this was,
It is fun.
Yes, of course. I mean, now we can see each other, and I could see people then, but nobody else could see because
Right.
it was audio, but it was audio. You could hear. Do you know,
Right.
it wasn't,
Yes.
and I should say there was a kind of a complementary project going on that actually started in about 2003 with Julie McCurris and Sue Vazosky. They had gotten the idea of doing a biographical questionnaire.
I remember
and
that.
yeah, and Mike Whalen, who was Wiggins at the time, did agree to it. And I think maybe, I don't know, then it didn't morph, but maybe it went into the idea of also doing a oral history type of thing, which started in 2006 with Don Terrace at the helm. And the biographical questionnaires, there was a little bit of a delay in actually getting them out, but they were mailed out in 2007. So two opportunities to get some biographical material on the BSIs. And so then I started, interviewing. I mean, I did Karen Anderson and
Paul Anderson's wife.
Yeah, Shirley Dickensheet, Dean Dickensheet's wife, who also is a Sherlockian in her own right. Same with Karen. These are couples that were both Sherlockians, not just, make sure everyone understands that. And so I continued on with that. And one of the people that came back to the Scours, not back to the Scours, but back to the BSI through the Scours, was Russell Merritt. Russell, who had been, as a youngster, a teenager, enamored with the BSI, and you've talked to him on this program too.
We just talked to Russ. I don't know, a number of episodes back. Yes.
Yeah, a wonderful interview, as you would expect with Russell Merritt. But he just ambled up. I mean, I think, and said, I'm a BSI. I haven't done any. I haven't, had any contact for years. I said, "You're what? What? Who are you?
Where have you been?"
Exactly. Well, like you were saying, life came in, and anyway, he was a pleasure to interview. I interviewed Michael Keane and Les Klinger. That was so long ago that they really need to be updated, because look at all the things that have happened. But you've done that. Anyway, it was about 2010, I think, that Don said, that I can't do this anymore. And Mike Whalen asked Andy Solberg, and I still kept interviewing people and helping. And then Andy was tapped to be the president, head of the trust. And so he took that on and then asked me in 2013, I think, if I would lead it. And so that's what I've been doing since then. I've been coordinating and
so how many do we have in the
interviews?
How many have we captured? Yeah, approximately.
Well, I'd say about a couple hundred.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny because the whole thing of the archives and the trust, the BSI archives and BSI trust. I talked a little bit about with Tamar Zephyrin about this, and when I interviewed her recently, and there's she brought it up. She said, and she's relatively she was around the 70s like us, but she said, because she's relatively new to the community. I mean, she's been around a while now, but she talked about how it was interesting to her how the BSI, because of its status in the community, and it's just sheer longevity has become sort of an object of interest and study in its own right. And I see the oral history stuff as a manifestation of that. The Trust, BSI Trust website, which you can see right down here below. You can go in and examine year by year every dinner that's ever been held, kind of track the history of the.
That was Andy's doing. Andy really spent a lot of time with the website and trying to drive people to that.
It's well worth a visit, everybody. So
yeah, all of those the
really
photos that he put up too, and it's been a and Tamara's been a great help. She's now, because when Andy stepped out of doing, he was doing the web pages for the interviews too. There's a lot that has to go on with these interviews before they can be put up, and Jen Aker has been just tremendous in doing the all the editing and whatnot, and Randall
it's a
has
real
been
group effort. I know.
Oh, it is. It's just amazing. Just
To me,
amazing.
it's just an example of another example of how, when you fall for the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and you come into this and you find yourself suddenly you're in this world. You may not know what you're signing up for, but you're getting an extended family in a way.
It's
it
true.
really feels that way to me sometimes.
I think so.
It's quite wonderful, and how people are willing to step up. And I love that. Love how you talked about how you're moving. You're young and you're moving. You don't know people, but you know that there are Sherlockians here, and how when you find them, boom! Now you have people. Now you have friends. You have a community. Right. It's quite wonderful, I think.
Yeah.
When that happens. Yeah. So.
Oh, and then you wanted to know what else. Probably around 2016, I think Michael Keane asked me if I would be the general editor of a new series that the Baker Street Irregulars Press was starting, the Professions series. Mm-hmm. The first book had come out, Nerve and Knowledge, and it wasn't until that came out that they kind of looked and said, hey, this is the makings of a series. We didn't know it, but this is really the first volume,
Right. Oh, it's a great
so series. So that was Michael at that point. He was the co-publisher with John Bergquist, and he was in charge of John was production and Michael was acquisitions and whatnot. Oh, the new co-publisher is Bob Katz, because Michael Keane had to step away when he became.
Well, he got a new job.
He got a new job. Said, well, I'm moving on. But Bob Katz stepped right in, so it was seamless. And Bob asked if I would pick up be the co-editor, which I also accepted. And so that was you really are a lot closer, right? I mean, you're really working directly with all of the authors, and that was a lot of
fun, isn't it? It's really exciting.
Yes, it was exciting. That's
kind of addicting, actually.
Well, it's a big amount of work. I have to say, very, very time consuming, because you want it to be good, right? And you want it to.
Oh yeah,
we're volunteers, and we're trying to.
You got to put it out. You got to get it as best as you can.
And you want it to look good,
right?
Too.
You want it to be good, right?
Professional looking, and and all of that. And the authors are, but you just have to put it all together. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
big job. It is.
The other thing that I do, which is such an honor, is now I do the Standing on the Terrace part of the
right. I didn't want. I was just going to say we have just enough time to talk about that.
Oh.
And, I always thought, boy, that's got to be the roughest job. At the BSI dinner, for those of you who don't attend the dinner, there's always a moment where we, every year we lose some irregulars. Some of them pass over the Reichenbach, as we say in our Sherlockian community. And we always have a moment where we acknowledge those that we've lost. And it's called Standing on the Terrace. And Marsha, you have that job now where you go to the podium and you sort of do the roll call, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a rough job, I would imagine.
It is.
I mean, a lot of times there's friends, you have friends in this list, you know?
Well, and that's the thing, because Francine Kitts did this for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, that she was going to step down. 10 years was enough. And just as you're saying, it was starting to be that she really, and she could see that she would continue to really know the people who were passing away.
Yeah,
it wasn't just that name of someone that from long past.
Yeah, he was a member in the 40s, and God bless him, but nobody here knew him. No, it's not like that anymore.
So I said, oh, I get that. Oh, good for you. Right time to step down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, of course, what happened was later, Michael Keane asked me if I would take on that responsibility. And I thought, oh, it would be so hard to do that.
Yeah.
But he said, it's really a time to honor these people. Yeah, and I believe that. And I think that you want to, not everybody knows them, and you want to tell people in the room who these members were and a little of what about their life and what they did. And so that's what I've been doing, and it is difficult to do, but it's very rewarding too. And
and
it's I try to do it best I can. And Francine is so right, because now I've had very good friends that I've.
Oh, I know it's hard. It's a hard moment.
You just have to look at the list in the past couple of years to see that.
Well, thank you for doing it. It's an important thing.
Yeah. No, it is.
So, Marsha, I hate to say it, but we are out of time. I told you it would go fast.
You were right.
It did. Yeah, it did. So thank you so much for being in the show today. And I do look forward to seeing you in person again. It's so funny. I mean, here we are, and we're just starting summer, but that BSI dinner is right around the corner. It always is.
It is.
So anyway, thank you, Marsha. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. It was great. It really was.
Thanks for doing all of these interviews with everyone too. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And that's it for this episode of the Fortnightly Dispatch. I want to say thank you, Marsha. It was really a joy to have an opportunity to meet with you. It's probably the longest conversation I've ever been able to have with you, because we're together in the same space, usually at some busy function. And so I'm grateful for having a chance to talk to you today. I'm also grateful to you in the audience. Your kind comments and feedback is so valuable. You still are sending it. And your people are still subscribing to the channel, and that's wonderful too. And so I am indeed very grateful for your continuing support. It really does help sustain the momentum of the show. Speaking of the momentum, we've only got about 3 episodes left in this season. So they're going to be good ones, though. So you want to make sure that you come back next time. Until then, I want to say thanks, and we'll see you then.
You should subscribe to the Baker Street Journal, because it is the place to learn about what's going on in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
The Baker Street Journal is hands down my favorite Sherlockian thing to read. When it comes in the mail, my night is planned.
The Baker Street Journal is the place to play the game. If you're a Sherlockian, you want to be able to do the game of understanding the times of Sherlock Holmes, the stories of Sherlock Holmes, what Sherlock Holmes is all about.
If you are not a subscriber to the Baker Street Journal, you have no idea what you're missing. This is hands down the best writing about the writings you'll ever find.
You'll find great articles about new discoveries that are being made every single day. But beyond that, you'll find out what other people are doing and how you can become more involved in the world of Sherlock Holmes.